from outside, so I'm gonna do this one for the first time from inside. Um, a quick update about the Romanian situation. It is my real impression that Romania is making history these days, is changing world history. Why? Because the kind of crisis that Romania is getting into, which will deepen, so this is only the beginning. Romania will become ungovernable in a short period of time. Uh, I think it is basically tipping the war party. So if things were until now staged, if the foundation has until now been laid for Romania to enter the war together with NATO, right now Romania is undergoing such a deep crisis, such a deep political, it's not even political, it's an institutional crisis, you know. You would say that there is a political crisis when you have parties that do not come to an agreement and it's hard to form a coalition and something like this. No, Romania is basically deep in an institutional crisis which has as background two things, two, let's say, black swan type events. One is the war, so the impending World War III, and the second one is the ascent of a candidate who is completely unquestionable, uncontestable. So let's say if such a thing were organized as a leader school, so a school where you would be taught how to become a statesman, this guy would be the rector, you know. So it's not that, of course, all the candidates that we had in the political in the presidential elections were complete amateurs or maybe mid-range amateurs, and this guy is not just a professional. He masters the art of statecraft, the art of hypnotizing the masses. He comes from the United Nations system. He's been a diplomat, he's a professor, a scientist. He also graduated, among other things, the Defense College of the Romanian Military Academy. He has probably been groomed for this position by the section of the deep state, of the Romanian deep state, which is loyal to the Romanian interests and which is probably connected to the Romanian army. This is my hunch. And the kind of crisis we have now in Romania is a superposition of three things. It's kind of a quantum entanglement of some things. So on the background of the impending war, of the impending land war between Russia and NATO, we have the appearance of this guy who is just larger than life. I mean, some people compare him to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but this is just one side of him. Another side of him is that he looks a lot like the Romanian leader from the Second World War, and he has also expressed support for that guy. And his grandfather used to be under the command of that guy, so he has ancestry leading to the military wartime leader of the Romanian state in the Second World War. To the fact that he is esoteric, so he speaks like a guru, he speaks like Osho. He also has a very Christian message. So there are so many sides to his personality, there are so many sides to his background. He also has all the qualifications a statesman could need, that it's really, really, really hard to say that he's not a good statesman, that he would not be a good president for Romania, especially given the lineup of complete amateurs that we had so far. Semi-literate amateurs, you know, and then comes the comet, you know, then comes this guy who is just larger than life, you know. You can find videos of him with at Davos with Schwab, but now of course he's against Schwab. You can find him on podcasts from the time of the pandemic with people like Rainer Fülemich, the lawyer from Germany who started this council to investigate the crimes of the pandemic and who is now in jail in Germany. A very interesting story himself. the way he talks about the UN system, the way he talks about how he got into the entire system. So he became a Romanian soil scientist, and he went to um, he was one of the envoys that Romania sent to the Club of Rome during the time of the limits of growth, you know, that whole report from which the concept of sustainable development emerged. So he's from that tier of people, you know, the public intellectuals of the planet, let's say. And subsequently, he joined the United Nations organization. He became disillusioned with this organization after like 20 years because they canceled his press conference regarding the dire situation of the people living in the Marshall Islands. So he was an envoy to Africa many times, and he decried the conditions of exploitation that the people of Africa live under. And then what broke the camel's back was the fact that he was sent to the Marshall Islands to do a report on sustainable development there, and they would not accept his report because the Marshall Islands is this place in the Pacific where the United States, which was a colony of the United States, so it gained independence from the United States in the 1980s. But before that, it was just a territory of the United States where the Americans tested their nuclear weapons. So you can imagine the horrible environmental degradation there, and he was instrumental in denouncing that. So can you imagine the level that he comes from? It's like it's really unbelievable. So he left the UN system and he revolved around Romanian politics without joining a party, and he was kind of this technocrat. And now all of a sudden the Romanians heard of him, and from this point onwards there's only going to be two options. Either Romania will stay a democracy and he will become the next president because he's completely unchallengeable. There is no way to challenge this guy unless you've lived maybe 3 lives and you've gotten 5 degrees plus all sorts of mastery of esoteric stuff. It's impossible to find a candidate that could beat this guy. This guy is basically the embodiment of what the Romanians would want as a leader. It's impossible to question his expertise, to question his capacity, to question his CV, to question the way he speaks. He also practices judo. He has the posture, he has everything that you would want from a statesman. So there is nobody from the Romanian political class that can challenge him. So obviously, if Romania is to stay a democracy, it will have to allow him to take power. However, on top of this black swan event that this guy gained traction and the Romanians want him as president, there are now some opinion polls regarding the second round that he might make 70%, which is perfectly... I mean, the only reason why the other side would have 30% is because there's this entire hysteria in Romanian society. But apart from that, if democracy would just be allowed to take its toll, there's hardly any reason why you would not vote for him and why you would vote for the other lady. So anyway, the Romanians will vote for him en masse in case he is allowed to become president. However, there are some other things involved. So he appeared on the Romanian political stage at exactly the time when Romania was basically being set up to be used as the land bridge towards Ukraine for sending troops. So there are all these signs that actually NATO and probably the European Union, I don't know which of them, but so under which umbrella, but the West will somehow send troops and equipment to Ukraine, and Romania is the main land bridge, and in Romania there's the missile shields, and in Romania the Ramstein base will move, or let's say a bigger base than Ramstein will be based here in Romania. So there are lots of plans regarding Romania for a number of reasons. It's at the Black Sea, it's bordering Ukraine, has a big border with Ukraine. The Romanians are quite Russophobe, so it's a perfect storm regarding involving Romania into the war. and the groundwork was being laid out for this, and all of a sudden you have this guy who comes out of nowhere and who wants peace. So he was the most pro-peace candidate and is the most pro-peace candidate. And of course, the system went wild, went bananas, because first of all, he was not expected. He was there, he was allowed to run, but nobody thought that his message could gain traction. And now the system is absolutely desperate to somehow get rid of him, even though there are no practical means to do that. So you have this black swan event called Călin Georgescu. This is one thing. Then you have the war. And then the third thing is this deep political institutional crisis that the Romanian state has gotten itself into, which would have happened irrespective of Georgescu or of the war. So what's happening now with the fact that the Romanians are are recounting the ballots from the first round of the presidential elections, which will probably not my hunch is that it will not actually be carried out all the way through because of all sorts of procedural reasons. So it was probably a stupid thing to do to order the recount because the electoral commissions for each ballot station had been disbanded, so it's hard to get them back. The counting is done without observers. It's a complete chaos. Nobody trusts the outcome, the new outcome, the process. So they will probably, the final outcome of this will probably be that they will just cancel the first round altogether. However, we will have a huge political crisis then, because first of all, we have parliamentary elections in 1 day and a half. There will be a sweep for the sovereigntist parties, so the sovereigntist parties will gain a huge majority. Some of these parties are not even in parliament right now, and they will gain a huge majority because of these events. And from that point onwards, Romania will become ungovernable because you have these parties, you have this new parliament which is completely hostile to the system, completely hostile to the European Union, to NATO, and the presidential election will not have been carried out through because the first round will have been cancelled by then, and the main contenders said that they would not run in a rerun. So in case the first round is redone, both the winner and the guy who actually is supposed to be the runner-up, because there was some election, I'm not sure if fraud, but some election mishandling, and the contender, the second place contender should be a different person. That guy also said he doesn't want to run. He's the current prime minister. He's the current prime minister of Romania, and he quit all his positions. He admitted defeat, and he said that even if he is brought back into the election and put into the second round, he said he doesn't want to contest it. And the other sovereigntist candidate is now supporting the winner of the elections, and he said that in case there is a rerun, he also will not run. So, and there are protests in the street. Now there are protests for the lady in second place. Her supporters are out on the street protesting, saying that the election is being robbed. Not in favor of the guy who won, not in favor of Călin Georgescu, about who there was the big uproar. No, the election is being stolen for the guy in third place. So it's the biggest fuck up you can imagine, and nobody trusts the process. The institutions have never had to deal with anything like this, and they've done some things which are out of the bounds of their competence, of their prerogatives. Apparently, the Constitutional Court did not have the prerogative to order the recount. However, the recount is being done nevertheless. So it's such a huge fuck up. And the more we get closer to the war and the more time passes, I don't see how this thing could be resolved, because it has entangled itself to such a degree that nobody understands anything. And because the whole background is this war thing and this black swan candidate, everybody thinks it's a conspiracy of some sort. So the supporters of Călin Georgescu, the supporters of the guy who won the election, believe that this is an operation to somehow oust him from the ballot entirely, which is actually plausible, so it might happen. The supporters of the lady in second place, Elena Lasconi, think that this is a maneuver to get her out from the election and to put in the candidate in the third place, who is the prime minister. They also believe it's a conspiracy. The guys who are in third, so the main party that is now in power, is bound to lose massively in the elections. It's dominated the political scene from 1990 until today, and it will become, for the first time in history, not the first party. Maybe it will be the second, maybe not, but it will definitely no longer be the first party in parliament. It will no longer be the biggest party in parliament, and their leader has already resigned, and they're just in crisis, you know. And their leader has also said that he would not contest the elections again, even though he is on the ballot, legally speaking. And so the supporters of this party are somehow, they also think it's a conspiracy of some sort, or some sort of hybrid attack, or they don't understand what's going on. And the rest of the people are just, yeah, everybody has their theory. It's kind of like December 1989. The protesters, the people who are out to protest, who are from the universities, they receive all sorts of crazy messages to radicalize them. So they are being intoxicated. There are these people who are 19, 20 years old. They haven't voted in their lives yet. This will be their first vote cast. And they're being bombarded on these channels for teenagers on Instagram and stuff. They're being bombarded with fake news like the legionnaires are coming to stab you. There are gangs of the extreme right coming to attack the students and stuff like this. The same psychosis is being created as was during the revolution, the so-called Romanian Revolution. So I think the groundwork is being laid for some sort of event. I'm also a bit conspiratorial right now, because of course there is some sort of dynamic that happens automatically through inertia, what we are witnessing now, and because of all of these parties that have their own biases and their own blind spots. However, there might be some sort of an operation going on at the same time. Just like in December 1989, there were several superimposed layers. During the revolution in 1989, you had a popular uprising regarding the living conditions, the austerity measures and so on. But you also had the Hungarian secret services operating an insurrection in Romania's westernmost city, in Timișoara. And you also had the Soviet military intelligence probably sending in more than 10,000 tourists at that time. And the people who took power in Bucharest were the agents, the majority of them. There was a small minority of the agents of the West, but the big majority of the people that took power then, Iliescu and people from the military, they had all studied in the Soviet Union, and they were all sidelined either from political power or from the military ranks because they had proven connections to the Soviet intelligence services, so either the military intelligence services or the foreign intelligence services. So you had a group of politicians and a group of so-called dissidents who had ties to the KGB, and you had military officers, high-ranking military officers who had ties to the GRU, the Soviet Military Intelligence Service, and you also had Romanian diplomats and ex-Romanian spies who had ties to the, I don't know how it was called in the Soviet Union, but the Foreign Intelligence Directorate of the Soviet Union. And all of these people who had ties to the Soviets of all kinds, they became the authorities in 1989. The civil authorities, the military authorities, the new diplomatic and intelligence authorities, all of them were collaborators of the Soviet Union. So you had all of these superimposed layers back then, and right now you also have some superimposed layers. The most worrying of all is the fact that it seems that we are edging closer and closer and closer to a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. And this confrontation will also have a ground component, and Romania is logistically and because of its position instrumental in that. So in case Romania flips, we might avoid the war. I don't know. Europe is not exactly in the best shape to fight a war against Russia in many respects. But if Romania flips, then that might just convince everybody that this is not a good idea, that this plan cannot be carried through. So this might be an operation of the domestic military intelligence services to prevent Romania's entry into the war. That's why they prepared this candidate. That's why maybe they're sabotaging the state right now. I have no idea. I'm also guessing just like anybody else. So, yeah, this is what's going on. Follow me for more updates. Stay safe, and until the next time, see you. Bye.